Good morning, everyone. Welcome to News Center Maine's Political Brew. Glad you could be with us. We're joined this morning by Ray Richardson of WLOB Radio and attorney Ken Altshuler, who was the longtime co-host of the WGAN Morning News. Gentlemen, as always, good to see you.
Good to see you both of you.
We've got a Republican primary in Maine's 2nd Congressional District in a little over a week. Long shot challenger Liz Caruso has been getting more attention from the media, even as former Congressman Bruce Poliquin refuses to debate her. Ray, let me ask you, does Liz Caruso have a legitimate shot of winning this nomination?
You know, you never know because politics in this country right now are crazy. I think probably not, and I don't blame Bruce for not debating her because his eye really is on November, and a live debate, as you and I've talked about, Pat, can be a dangerous thing. Somebody could try to clip something and use it against you in an ad. And so I don't think so. I will say I was at the convention. She gave a fiery, wonderful speech. A lot of people responded to it in a very positive way. So I guess we'll see. You know, in a primary, it's all about who shows up to vote.
And Ken, Caruso has made a pretty strong message about her priorities by saying she would align with some Republican hardliners such as Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, I don't think that's a strong selling point. And not to say there's not that kind of perspective here in the state of Maine, but I think it's a rarity. I do agree with Ray. I think she's a long shot. Bruce has been an established politician that either helps or hurts him, but I think the base is not probably ready to go with somebody who appears to be somewhat out on the fringe. I'm not really crazy about the way that Bruce's campaign is kind of attacking her through, you know, a campaign manager rather than directly with Bruce. And I think you got to be careful of a rose garden strategy of not doing anything and just kind of resting on your laurels and waiting for the general election. But it's still a long shot. It's still Bruce's to lose, and I don't see that happening.
The two candidates do have one thing in common. That's a reluctance to say who won the 2020 presidential election. Ken, why not give a definitive answer here? Neither candidate has really done so.
This has continued to perplex me since the election. The big lie continues to haunt me. I don't understand why Republicans, near and far, don't stand up and face the reality. Every court challenge, there's not one scintilla of evidence that indicates that it wasn't a legal, lawful election. And I think that they just cater to their base. Now, the more extreme, the candidate going for the Donald Trump base is going to say that because that gets Donald Trump's endorsement and gets some voters out. But it's a lie. And I think we have to stop the lie. We should have done it a long time ago.
And Ray, I'd point out that, excuse me, on 207, Bruce Poliquin would only say, well, Donald Trump won the 2nd Congressional District. And Liz Caruso says, well, the Electoral College says Biden won. Hardly a definitive statement from either one.
Yeah, my standard has been since November the 5th, 2020, that in the absence of evidence that would stand up in court, Joe Biden, and believe me, it gives no pleasure saying this, but Joe Biden won the election. And I have said on my program for the last 18 months, it's time to move on. We can't do anything about 2020. It's time to focus on 2022 and ultimately 2024. And I wish the candidates, all of them, would do that. Joe Biden won. That's the way our system works. I don't like it. I can't stand it, but he won.
Shifting our focus to the State House, there are quite a few primaries for state legislative seats in both parties. Ray, what does that tell you?
Well, for me, it's very exciting. This is the first time that I'm aware of in my 37 years in Maine that Republicans have actually recruited more candidates than Democrats have in totality to run for the State House. I think it demonstrates for both parties just how important people believe the State House race and the State Senate race is in November. I'm excited about it. I've never seen a three-way primary race for Republicans for a State House seat, and that's happening here. I think Republicans, frankly, are ready to rumble this November, and that's good for me.
Ken?
Well, I agree with Rory. I think it shows, well, more than just excitement, it shows good recruiting on the Republicans' end. Also shows a very volatile political climate in the United States. And I dare say, and I've said before, that there's been bad times in the past, but I think we've gotten to the point where it's never been this divided in our country. And I think that brings out everyone. I think that it's good and healthy to have a lot of competition. I applaud it. I still think it's the Democrats to lose, and I don't think they will, but I do think it's better for the Republicans, and it shows some real vitality in the Republican Party here.
Some primaries have become quite heated. In the Senate race in the Orono area, Senate President Troy Jackson, a Democrat, is backing brewery owner Abe Firth in that Democratic primary and has accused activist Mike Tipping of some underhanded political tactics without much in the way of specifics. Tipping denies claims that he fabricated endorsements or illegally placed signs. But Ken, isn't it unusual for leadership like Troy Jackson to weigh in on a contested primary?
Of course it is, because you don't know who's going to win. And if you start taking a side and the other side wins, you've right then alienated them from party participation. I don't understand why it was necessary to take a position. Most party leaders sit on the sideline, wait for the people to decide who they want representing their party, and then endorse the candidate of their party. And I think some of these attacks, particularly without proof of a fake endorsement, I think it looks bad for Troy Jackson. It makes it look petty for him as well. The sign issue is a different issue. A lot of candidates put signs in lawns that they think endorses them. It doesn't. But the endorsement argument is a bad one. I know they don't really like Mike Tipping, but I think it was bad policy and a bad appearance.
Ray, what do you think?
Far be it from me to give Democrats advice, but typically Ken's right. Leadership stays out of it. And one of the reasons is because if your guy loses, it's very easy to say, well, he would have won if it hadn't been for leadership tipping the scale here. Creates animosity moving forward to the November election. You know, I'll say this about Mike Tipping. I do not care for his politics. I think he's a far woke lefty. But the fact of the matter is he's one of the best political operatives in the state of Maine. I would never take that from him. And I think this is bad strategy for Troy Jackson. I'm glad he's doing it because I want him to lose, but I think it's bad strategy.
Now, elections for district attorney are usually low-key, small money affairs, but Cumberland County District Attorney Jonathan Sarbeck is crying foul because a PAC, which supports his primary opponent, Jackie Sartoris, got a $300,000 contribution and has been running ads against him, largely digital ones, and they pop up everywhere. The funding comes from a Democratic mega donor, George Soros, who's also funding other progressive candidates around the country. Sarbeck says this is outrageous and that Sartoris should denounce the ads. But Ray, is this simply the way of the political world now?
It unfortunately is. And I think it's a question everyone ought to ask. And I want to preface this with Jonathan is a personal friend and I support him. But I think a question everyone ought to ask, why in the world is George Soros playing in a district attorney's race in Cumberland County, Maine, where there's about 200,000 people? I think everybody ought to be asking that question. He's a sinister political figure, and this is dirty pool. But hey, this is American politics. American politics is now dirty pool, and everybody complains about it, and nobody does anything about it. So we must like it.
Ken?
Well, first, this full disclosure, I support Jonathan as well. I'm going to appear in an ad supporting him, so I want to make that disclosure. That being said,
way to go, Ken. Way to go, buddy.
I like him. And by the way, Stephanie Anderson was a tremendous district attorney. She's a Republican. I supported her every campaign as well.
And Sarbeck's a former Republican, so we'll go there too.
There you go. This is this is politics. Look, I hate to say it, but the Supreme Court has said that pretty much anyone can give money to anybody they want anytime, including corporations. So until you change the campaign laws, this is reality. I wouldn't be whining about it if I was Jonathan. I would let the people react as they will and hope that people don't fall for it. I don't know why Judge Soros does these small campaigns, although this is typical of him. He's put a lot of money in district attorney races. I'm not sure why, but it's part of politics. And if you want to change it, run for office, win, and change the laws.
I think there's one important point in this ad, Pat, if I just could very quickly. One of the ads I saw today was going after Jonathan on sex trafficking victims. Jonathan Sarbeck has been a warrior on protecting victims of sex trafficking. It's too bad Soros has to lie to do what he does.
Yeah, the ads are dirty, by the way, and incorrect.
Dirty.
But that's the nature of our politics today.
There are some long shots on the ballot coming up in November. Unenrolled candidate for governor Sam Hunkler is a political newcomer. He's an Ohio native who settled in Maine a long time ago. He's a physician who says he's worked in 8 Maine communities. His campaign website is short on policy proposals, but he's accepting no campaign contributions, and he gathered more than 4,000 signatures to get on the ballot. So we will not have that one-on-one campaign between Governor Janet Mills and former Governor Paul LePage that many had hoped for. Ken, let me ask you, what kind of impact do you think Sam Hunkler is going to have here?
we have a one-on-one campaign. Sam Hinkler will have no impact on this election whatsoever. If he really had some money behind him and there were people who didn't like Paul LePage or Janet Mills, he may have some impact. But you've got the Janet Mills supporters, Paul LePage supporters. They're going to be clear, distinct camps on both sides. He's going to have no impact whatsoever.
Ray?
So I think if he does have an impact, it's going to be negative for Governor Mills. No one supporting LePage is going to consider anyone else. But as you know, Governor Mills has had some trouble with her far left flank, and they may look for an alternative. I'm not saying they will, but if they do, that's where the impact would happen.
And in the 2nd Congressional District, Tiffany Bond gathered enough signatures to get on the November ballot for a rematch against Congressman Jared Golden and the winner of the GOP primary, either Liz Caruso or former Representative Bruce Poliquin. Bond, like Hinkler, also makes it a point of pride to accept no campaign contributions. Unlike the gubernatorial race, this is a ranked choice election. So, Ray, how do you think it'll shape up?
Well, I think last time she was probably involved, not because she thought she could win, but maybe she could influence the outcome. And maybe she did. There were votes that went to her. What did she get, 5 or 6%? Look, the biggest problem Bruce Poliquin had in 2018, despite popular opinion, was not ranked choice voting. It was the fact that 60,000 people that voted for him in 16 did not bother to show up and vote in 2018. It wasn't they went to Golden. It's just they didn't come out and vote. So if that problem happens again, well, Bruce could be in trouble. I think Bruce wins the race, but people have got to come out and vote, and I don't think she's a factor if that happens.
Ken?
Yeah, last time she had a little over 5% of the vote. I don't think it was ranked choice voting either. I agree with Ray. People didn't vote for Bruce Poliquin. I don't think she's going to have a real impact. I think Jared is pretty popular in the 2nd District. This is a Democratic wave coming up in November. It may impact this election. But
The Republican wave.
Republican wave, yes. And I wish it was a Democratic wave.
Yeah.
No.
And so Jared may be in trouble because of that. But, Maine is fairly independent. People like Jared. He's voted on some amazing no's against the Democrats in the House of Representatives. I think it's Jared's to lose. I think he's going to win it. And I don't think Tiffany's going to have any impact in this election.
Anger among Americans over the mass shootings at a school in Uvalde, Texas, the supermarket shooting in Buffalo, the hospital shooting in Tulsa, and so on, has not subsided. President Biden delivered a primetime address on the subject on Thursday. He said,
"We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Strengthen background checks. Enact safe storage law and red flag laws. Repeal the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability."
Now, Biden also says the Second Amendment is not absolute and that more needs to be done to address mental health issues. Ken, will Congress take action?
No, and this is where Ray and I may take a different path. I think this is criminal. Once again, when Sandy Hook happened almost 10 years ago, I said if nothing changed because of that, when you have elementary school kids slaughtered and nothing changes, nothing will ever change. I don't think this is going to happen. You're not going to get 10 Republicans in the Senate to beat a filibuster, and nothing's going to change. And I'm not going to say one thing alone would have changed this outcome, but if there are some simple, common sense solutions, universal background checks, maybe permits, red flag laws, waiting until 21 to buy a gun, all those things are sensible. The American public, in the majority, although it decreases every year, wants it. It's a mystery to me why we wring our hands and say, what are we going to do about this? Politicians refuse to do anything, and we keep reelecting them. Nothing's going to change. It's very frustrating to me.
And Ray, before you weigh in, let me point out the Senate may hold the key here. And Maine Senator Susan Collins is part of a bipartisan group of 9 senators who are looking at things such as red flag laws and expanded background checks. On Friday, we saw a lot of high school students who clearly have a stake in this issue marching to Susan Collins' office in Portland to encourage her to support reforms. What do you think is going to happen here?
I don't think anything's going to happen here. Look, the things that could happen that might make a difference. For example, we hear so much about background checks, but we don't listen to the people that perform the background checks or even law enforcement. Our background checks don't have quality information in them. The first thing we ought to do, if we agree that background checks should be there, is we should make sure that the information contained is accurate and fully up to date. That would be a worthy step here, because we don't want criminals, nor do we want people who are struggling with mental illness to have guns. But we're not doing that. We have mandatory reporters around the country who aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Some say it's a conscientious objection, but the fact of the matter is they are supposed to report these things, and those should be in the background checks. Look, you cannot legislate against evil. It doesn't work that way. This is a problem much larger than the government. I get it. Elected people want to do something. But if we really want to stop this, we're going to have to change our culture. Our culture glorifies death. It's in our music, our movies, our literature, you name it. It's in our video games. We glorify death here, and then we wonder why these things happen. It's crazy to me.
Aren't those things worldwide problems, not just American? The difference being we just have far more guns than any other country does.
Well, I mean, if you want to go to the accessibility of guns, I don't understand that argument. I mean, we have what, depending on who you ask, somewhere around 500 million guns. If we had 100 million guns, would this be less likely to happen? I don't understand that argument. This is a heart issue. This is a morality issue. Nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to pass laws. Well, there were a hell of a lot of laws on the books that boy down in Texas broke when he killed all those kids. So if laws are the answers, why didn't the ones on the books work?
What do you think, Ken?
I think you look at Great Britain, you look at Australia, you look at New Zealand. They took the guns away and mass murders stopped. You can't solve this problem by giving people more guns or not doing more stricter laws. I agree with Ray. Background checks that make sense, but there's so many basic things we could do. You know, I hear the argument, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Can we make it a little harder for people to do that? Can we do something, have some action? The answer is no. And until people stand up and insist on it, it's not going to happen.
Well, I think the problem is that we're fighting over the wrong issues here. There are some steps we could take. And I think both sides might agree on some common sense measures. But the fact is, it's not politically palatable, so they're not going to do it.
I agree.
All right. The Mills administration is about to start sending out $850 checks to most Mainers. There was brief concern this past week that there might not be enough envelopes to go around. So, shortages and supply chain issues everywhere. However, that's apparently been resolved. But it had some people asking, why not just use electronic payments and direct deposit for those who choose to file their taxes that way? Ray, is there a political reason why they'd rather send a physical check out?
Well, of course, they think, and see, it's going out early, which was my idea. I encourage Republicans to jump on board so we could get these checks out and get over with this. I think more importantly, this money is going to be spent because gas and oil and food are just so crazy. Little can of Folgers the other day, we never paid more than $3.89 for. We paid $5.99 for. I just couldn't believe it. But my point is, yeah, the governor wants to send out a letter with the check saying, hey, I'm Janet Mills. I'm your governor. I'm looking out for you. Here's a check for $850. Please thank me in November. But I think these are going out so early, it's not going to matter. ACH makes a lot of sense. It would save money, but there's no political angle with an ACH. When you see it in your bank account, there's no love letter from the governor.
Ken?
Once again, I agree with Ray. It should have gone out October 1st, by the way. Paper checks, you see your name, you see your letter. I would have liked to go out later. And Ray and I both agree that these checks shouldn't be the solution. It should go in a rainy day fund. It should be saved for the future. But yeah, I agree with Ray.
All right, let's wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. Ken Altshuler, we start with you.
So I think the winners are the people of Maine for the topic we just discussed, the vitality of the political system. We're seeing Republicans and Democrats running for office, duking it out, getting the issues out there. I think it's good for the health of Maine. I'm glad to see it. And not going to be good for the Democrats nationwide, but I think it's good for the people of Maine. The losers are our children and our future children, because we refuse to do anything to stop the love affair with guns and violence in the United States of America. We refuse to protect our children. We let our elementary school children be slaughtered by mentally ill people who can go buy a gun when they can't buy a drink. Shame on us.
And Ray Richardson.
I don't even know how to respond to that, so I'm not going to. I agree with Ken on the winners. I think this is going to be a vigorous political cycle. A lot of people are interested. A lot of people are involved. That's what America needs. We need a vigorous, principled debate. And I think we may finally get one here in Maine. We haven't had a good old-fashioned Donnybrook politically in a long time. And I say Donnybrook in a very positive way. I think engagement, everybody getting involved and mixing it up is a very positive thing for this state. I don't really have a loser. I'm not big on picking losers, but I will say this: it's the beginning of June, summer's here. How could we all not be happy about that?
Let's enjoy that. Good way to focus. Good
Amen.
way to Ray, Ken, thank you so much as always. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time. News Center Maine is back after this.